Before I cut miters on just about all pieces, I just make a reference mark on the piece, and this is telling me, this is reminding me the angle has to go that direction, because many times I've picked up a piece of wood, set it down, pick it up again, and I cut the wrong end, or I cut the miter going the other direction. So these are just little reminders, so you will be able to do that successfully. The first step in the construction of this model would be some of the marble pieces that surround the fireplace opening. For the sake of demonstration, we're going to use raw wood, but we highly recommend you painting these pieces first to resemble marble, and also paint the firebox. A small note on cutting of this trim. All the trim, with the exception of the cast resin pieces, is made out of cherry, and cherry is a hardwood, so I would strongly recommend running out and buying a brand new X-Acto or Zona razor saw, new and sharp, and a new miter box. Miter boxes have a tendency to wear out. They get sloppy in the grooves. Cutting cherry wood is not much different than cutting basswood, except it takes longer. It's hard wood. The first thing we're going to do is cut a 45 on that rounded portion of this marble molding. Cutting hardwood, just take your time, let the saw do the work. You don't have to bear down very hard, just nice even strokes. It will take a little longer than basswood, but it's a lot cleaner. And that's it. Now before these pieces get glued in, we're going to glue in the plinth blocks. There are some recesses in the wall section that will eventually accommodate the cast resin raised panels. Right now we're going to leave the panels out, but we're going to clamp a block, any stick, anything, create a stop, a curb, that will allow us to install this molding exactly where it's supposed to be. We don't have to measure, we don't have to line anything up, we're just going to create a stop. The plinth is going to go right up to that block. Our cast resin molding will go right up against that block.
I have a question. So you're making sure that block is right up against the edge of the plywood?
Yes.
Okay.
So I like to use blocks or stops for a lot of operations, just, so you have your hands free, you're not worrying about something sliding in glue. It just allows you proper positioning. You're not aiming for a pencil line, you're actually going up against something solid. You'll use this technique in many parts of this model. I have another block that is going to be loose, that's going to form, it'll act as the floor of the model. That plinth block is going to get glued in, touching both blocks. That's exactly where it wants to go. So to glue this, when you're gluing wood to wood, I like to use Titebond or any of the, the Elmer's family of glues. The Carpenter's wood glue, Elmer's glue, any of those work well. I like Titebond. This is an extremely strong bond. You don't need a lot of this glue. A lot of people put it on with a brush. After a while, you'll just use it right out of the tube. And I'll spread that glue around a little bit. I don't want a lot of it squeezing out. Now, before I set that on the model, I like to use the CA, the cyanoacrylate glue, like this Jet Glue, Zap-A-Gap, the Crazy Glue family of glues. And I use this as a carpenter would use a finish nail. This adhesive that's already on the wood is what's going to do all the major holding. But so I don't have to hang on to this thing for a half hour waiting for it to cure. I will use this fast drying CA glue. It acts as a nail. It holds that piece in place. I can move on to the next operation. So again, you don't need a lot of this. This is just to hold it in place. And on this particular piece, I'll put 4 dots. Push this block up against the wall. This block is clamped into that recess, and I'll drop that plinth block in. And I'll hold that down 15-20 seconds. Again, that allows the CA glue to set up. Gluing in the vertical marble piece, you lightly relieve the top edge, which gives a impression of a nice smooth seam with the adjoining horizontal piece. Now this piece, the location of this piece is determined by this block. We're going to use some of the egg and dart cast molding as a spacer, which is technically the next piece in line, and then this marble piece will butt up against it. Again, this block is immovable. We're going to glue this and push it against the block. We'll do the same on the other side. The next step is mitering and attaching the horizontal marble piece. The first thing you want to do is find the center of this piece. I like to work in scale, inches, and feet. This measures out 4 feet 6.5 inches, so that half of that would be 2 foot 3.25 inches. I always double check myself, and I measure from the other side, hoping to get 2 foot 3.25 inches, which I did. That mark I'll transfer onto the top surface of the marble. Eventually this piece is going to get glued down, and that line is going to line up with the center line mark. So right now we're going to try for an equal overlap on either side of these marble verticals. So we're going to put that piece on the center line, hold it in place, and we're going to transfer this vertical line and this vertical line onto the horizontal piece because we want it miter. You can see we don't want this rounded portion butting into this. We want a nice miter right in here. So we're going to carry this line up to here, and we're going to carry this line also up to there. And we'll do our little reminders. We're going to go, okay, this is going to miter this way. This guy's going to miter this way. Not only are we going to cut this miter here, but we're going to eliminate all this wood. Same on this side. And again, I don't mind doing these little reminders just to let you know what stays and what goes. Right, to mark these 45s, we're going to use a square. We're going to bring that square right to that point there. This line is telling us that's exactly where we want the miter. We'll flip the square over, and we'll do the same thing on this one. Okay, now it's marked and ready to cut.
And you could put it in there to double check, just hold it up against there to make sure it's right.
Next, take your X-Acto knife and score right on that miter line. And that's going to give the saw something to follow instead of trusting a pencil mark in your eye. So we've made an indentation there. We'll do the same on the other side. And that should be a good guide for the razor saw. And you don't want to cut into the face. Don't forget, this is a painted, nice, beautiful painted surface. So you're going to start your saw right in that groove that you cut. And actually a couple pull strokes is probably all you're going to need. When you get to the end of it, you're going to have that saw vertical. For those of you that own a jeweler's saw, that too will work nicely. Again, you're going to cut up to that line. razor saw or jeweler's saw for the next cut, which is get rid of that material. That works, and you can see a jeweler's saw also works nicely. And that's the first cut. We do the same procedure on the other side. We're going to clean up that cut with a file and a slight angle. Kind of back cut it so it won't get hung up on the vertical piece. And we'll take our sanding block and we're going to lightly relieve this cut edge, again to give that nice rounded seam. And that's it. The next step will be to check our overhang on each side. This measures out about a scale 1.25 inches. This side, a scale 1.25 inches. So you can do a little reference mark, use your center line. We'll glue this guy up.
Now when you use the CA glue with the wood glue, you don't have a lot of time for repositioning, right?
No, you don't. There's not too much time. That's why I don't push it down real hard. I just set it down onto the workpiece, and then if I have to adjust, buy a little bit more time.